Hello and welcome to the video where we will learn how to use multiplication by a constant factor to represent proportional relationships. Proportions are formed when we equate two ratios together, and ratios are the comparison of two different units. In this ratio, we are comparing a bee to a diving beetle. So our ratio is bee per beetle. Now, when this ratio is multiplied by a constant scale factor, times 5 in this case, then we form a proportion. This ratio is scaled up, and we see that it is enlarged. Now, we know this is a proportional relationship because they are being multiplied by the same scale factor. But if we didn't know the scale factor, we can equate the cross products. And the cross product is equivalent, then the proportion is equivalent. The scale factor and cross product method can also be used to find missing information or to form equations to solve. So, let's use these characteristics to help us solve problems that involve a proportional relationship. Let's look at our procedures. The first one says, find the ratio and set up the proportion. Always label your numbers. And number 2, use the cross product or scale factor method. Whichever method is easiest for you is the one that you should use. Let's look at the first example. Number 1 says, Anne is traveling by bus to see a friend who moved away from her neighborhood. She has been on the bus for 2 hours and has traveled 120 miles. Which equation can be used to show the distance, d, she would travel in hours, t, assuming the bus will travel at a constant speed? So first, let's highlight our important information. I'm looking for all the numbers, 2 hours, 120 miles, and anything that's a variable, like distance, d, and hours, t. Now that we found our ratios, we need to set up our proportion. Our first ratio is 2 hours over 120 miles. So 2, write your label, hours, and put it over 120 miles. Don't forget your labels. So that means our labels tell us that the numerator here must be a time unit of hours and the denominator must be a distance unit of miles. So the question says that the distance will be represented as d. So the distance here will be d, and the time will be represented as t. So now let's use our cross product method because we can't find the scale factor because we don't know 2 times some number equals some unknown. So when our cross product, we can see what we need to multiply. We need to multiply d times 2. That gives us 2d. And that will equal 120 times t, which would be 120t. So now we have the equation 2d equals 120t. We are solving for the distance because it asks which equation can be used to show the distance. So we need to get distance by itself. So if we're multiplying by 2, we need to do the opposite. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we're going to divide, which is this bar right here, this fraction bar, by 2 on both sides. So the 2's cancel out, and d will equal 60t, because 120 divided by 2 is 60. So we see that our answer choice is B. Well, let's look at another example. The second problem reads, a plumber charges his customers $90 for each hour he works. If Mr. Hall's bill for plumbing services is $855, which equation could be used to determine the number of hours the plumber worked? So, now that we found our ratios, let's set up the ratios and then the proportion. It says $90 for each hour. Well, each means one, so $90 for 1 hour. So $90 here for 1 hour. So we know our ratio, our numerator has to have dollars and a denominator hours. So in the rest of the problem, it says the services is $855. So that will go up here, 855. And we need to determine the number of hours. So that will be H here. So now let's use our cross product method. So we're going to multiply 90 times H will give us 90H. And that will equal 1 times 855, which is 800. Can you tell which answer choice matches our equation? It's correct. B. So we form the equation using one of the characteristics of proportional relationships, which is the cross product. So let's look at another example. By saving the same amount each week, Maria was able to save $92.75 from her allowance over the course of 7 weeks. So this is important information. $92.75 over the course of 7 weeks. At the same rate, how much could Maria save in 11 weeks? So I looked through the problem, zeroed in on my numbers to see what, and identified their labels. So now that we identify the ratios, let's set up the proportion. So the first one is $92.75, which is money. And this is going to be over 7 weeks. So in our next ratio, we need money over weeks. So it says at the same rate, how much could Maria save in 11 weeks? So we know how many weeks we have, but we don't know the amount of money. So let's do a cross product. So we're going to take $92.75 and multiply by 11 and 7 times x. So let's work over here. $92.75 times 11. 5729. Placemaker. 5729. Let's add that up. It's 5, 12, carry the 1. That's 10. That's 12. And that's 10. 2 to go out means 2 to go in. So 11 times $92.75 is $1,020.25. And that will equal 7x. So now we need to get x by itself. Divided by 7 on both sides. So this will cancel out, and x will equal the division of 1,020 and 25 hundredths divided by 7. So let's work that out here. 7 can't go into 1, so put an x on top. 7 goes into 10 one time, with a remainder of 3. Let's drop down to 2. 7 goes into 32 4 times. Subtracting 28, leaving us with 4. And dropping down to 0. 7 goes into 40 5 times. It's 35. Starting to see the answer. Remainder of 5. Let's drop down our 2. 7 goes into 52. Bring it by decimal. 7 times minus 49, which would be 3, and drop down to 5. 7 goes into 35 5 times, with a remainder of 0. So our answer is D, $145.75. Let's look at another example problem. Our last problem states apples are on sale at the local fruit stand at $4 a pound at 4 pounds for $2.60. Which equation can be used to find the cost, C, of n pounds of apples? Well, now that we found our ratio, let's set up our proportion. The first ratio is 4 pounds over $2.60, which is money. So when we set up our next ratio, we know we need pounds at the top and money at the bottom. So money is going to be represented by the letter C, and pounds is going to be represented by the letter N. So let's use our cross product to find our equation. We're going to multiply 4 times C, which gives us 4C, and that will be equal to 260 times N. 2.60 times N. So that's 2.60 N. So we need to solve for C. So if we're multiplying C by 4, we need to do the opposite of that and divide by 4 on both sides. So we get C equals 2.60 N divided by 4. So let's do that division. 2.60 divided by 4. 4 goes into 26 6 times. Minus 24. Drop down the 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Remainder of 0. So C is reduced to 65 hundredths times N. So we see that our answer choice is letter C. So remember, when solving problems with proportional relationships, find the ratios, set up the proportions, always labeling your numbers, and then use the cross product or scale factor method. And that will lead you to the correct answer. So thanks for watching, and remember, math is making amazing thoughts happen.